there's so many different ways to do entrepreneurship that you need to find the model that works best for you first. Part-time business is great if it's extra income that allow you to vacation. A solo entrepreneur who only wants to make money so that they're not part of the corporate world is also noble. Somebody wants a family-run business with no more than 4 or 5 employees, that's great. And the people who want to build huge businesses, that's also great, right? So find the model that works for you.
Welcome, everyone, to the From Chaos to Clarity podcast. Unleash your business potential. I'm your host, Sonja Jones of GIP Financials, your Mr. Miyagi of Money. And y'all, this is the episode you have been waiting for, because I know every CEO has been asking about funding, grants, loan, all of that type of stuff. And I have one of what I consider the Power Rangers in the place. So you're going to hear directly from the horse's mouth today. And so I have my partner, Williams D. Brack, the owner of Building Bankable Businesses. And let me tell you about Williams. We met actually in November of last year. He was hosting a lending seminar with the Black Business Association of Memphis, and I was fortunate enough to be on the panel. And it was great. Networking definitely has its privileges. And like I was telling him earlier, that from that one particular event, I've already made, acquaintances with two other businesses, and we're doing projects together. And so, y'all, this is the magic that comes with networking, getting yourself out there, and also aligning with people who have the same core values as you do. I'm a teacher. I come from an education background. And when I tell you, Williams in that seminar had a stack full of papers like this, he already had my heart. That was my language. That's my love language, teaching. And I appreciate thorough teachers and teachers that have, the empathy for people. They just don't want, to give you the fish. They're going to teach you how to fish. And they're going to sit on the bank with the cane pole. They're going to tell you the type of bait that you need to get the type of fish that you want. And so that's why I honor Williams today. And that's why he is a guest on our podcast.
Sonia, happy to be
Williams,
here.
thank you.
I think our connection is one that says social media works. I was able to find the things that you were posting on social media, especially Instagram, vet some of your content, look through some of the work that you were doing, go to your website, all the important things, and decided that it made sense to invite you to one of my seminars, because what you do at GIP Financial and what you do in the bookkeeping and financial space for these business owners are very critical in the ecosystem. So I felt like you needed to be a part of the mission, and invited you to the seminar. Glad to hear you found value from it.
Absolutely. Yeah, likewise. Just not only in what you present, but also in the panel discussion. And like I said, just the way that you crafted, that event, and then having literally everybody that would be, literally a part of, the lending process, from getting your entity together to the bookkeeping to, all the several different, other lending institutions there. It was magical. It was very strategic, and well thought out. Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. I know the people that were there were also, grateful for that experience as well. So we already talked about you being a lender. So tell us a little bit about Building Bankable Businesses.
Sure. Thank you. So again, my name is Williams D. Brack, and I'm the owner of Building Bankable Business. And Building Bankable Businesses started because I was a commercial lender, loaning money with a couple of regional banks in the city of Memphis. And what I realized while I was at the bank is that there's a sort of mutual frustration. I think from the lending side, when I was trying to loan money to customers, we'd be frustrated that business owners would come, not know how much they needed, not know what they wanted to use the money for, and then take their frustrations out when we wouldn't loan them any money. On the flip side, entrepreneurs who've been working hard and attempting to grow their business and looking for funding, they'd have relationships with banks. Sometimes it's 5, 10, 15, 20 years. And when they go to get funding, can't understand why they have money at the bank, why don't they qualify for loans? And so in between that frustration, Building Bankable Businesses was born. And so I have a degree from finance. I have a degree in finance from Morehouse College. I had my Series 7 and 66 doing personal and wealth management planning. So insurance, investments, and all these things. I then became a commercial lender. I worked with businesses as small as 5 million up to about $500 million. And then I transitioned into the accounting and tax world, helping people connect to CPAs and financial advisors. But again, that was 5 million up to $1 billion. And so what I decided to do is take all the information that I learned working with these medium and huge businesses, distill it down to some information that made sense for entrepreneurs who had ambition to grow that size. And the culmination of that started with what we do at Building Bankable Businesses. And what we do is we educate first, we coach second, if necessary, we refer third, and then fourth, we can fund small business owners, is what we do.
I love that. You see, I'm taking notes. Educate, coach, refer, and fund. I really, really love that because if you heard y'all, the first tier in that is education. And I kind of see it, Williams, kind of like as a pyramid. So if you got educate right here, that's the foundation, y'all, right? Because that's our mission at GIP Financials is to empower entrepreneurs, right, to prioritize their numbers and build, their businesses up for profit. So, y'all, there's no way around it. You got to know your numbers. You heard it from the lender. Did y'all not hear it? I heard it. Right? So I just want to, as you were talking, Williams, I was taking notes. And just even with the why behind your business, with entrepreneurs being frustrated with y'all, saying like, hey, I need some money. And you're like, where your stuff at? And you're like, what you talk about? We can't give you no money. Right? Because that's the same thing when it comes with bookkeeping. So let's kind of like dig a little deeper into that experience with entrepreneurs coming to get funded. So I guess my first question would be, as far as the conversation that you have with the entrepreneur at first, what are the normal requirements that the lenders have before they even invite you to apply for lending? What are you
So
guys looking for?
absolutely. So we're looking for, at a minimum, your income statements, your balance sheets, the ratios that those things combine, a list of your customers, and the fact that you're making money. Lending is hugely numbers based. Your story is important, but only to the extent that your numbers make sense. Right. And so if you go to the bank asking for money, you better believe you need some financial information to back that up. And that also includes tax returns. And I'll use that as a segue to, to pitch what we were doing on Building Bankable Businesses. And the education part of the pyramid that you mentioned is really the one, reset expectations with all lenders, and then educate the entrepreneur on what they need to have together to take to the lender to really improve their chances of being approved. But
Mm-hmm.
Sonja, it takes a team, right? And that team
Yeah.
is one, the entrepreneur must make money. That is the very first thing. Two, you must track all of your dollars going in, all of your dollars going out, and that's why GIP Financial is important. That's why bookkeepers and accountants are important. Two, you must have your legal documents in place. We're going to ask for those articles of incorporation, um, where you filed your taxes, but things like insurance are also important. The lender want to see evidence of your insurance. And so what we did for building bankable businesses was, one, educate people on the types of lenders first, right? So you have big banks, medium banks, small banks. You have people that aren't even banks lending money. You have financial institutions that are nonprofits set up to lend to women and minority owned businesses. And all of those people are different in the ecosystem of finance. But after we educate on the bank side, we let people know that attorneys are important, that commercial insurance advisors are important, CPAs, accountants, and tax professionals are also important, because there's nothing more powerful that you can say to a lender than, hey, call my bookkeeper, call my accountant, and they have all my financial information ready.
I'll tell you. I mean, you guys, you heard it straight from the horse's mouth. And that's kind of one of the things that we teach in our workshop, the business finance blueprint. This first thing that we talk about is entity. Just making sure, first of all, that you understand, it goes beyond just having an EIN, right? You have to know from a state perspective what type of entity would be, best for your business. Like if you're gonna do a sole proprietor, let's talk about the state of Tennessee. You gotta have a license. A lot of people get it mixed up. Well, I got an LLC, that's all I need. That's just the entity. Because a lot of people, do different things with their LLCs. If you're using their LLC for the sake of business, you gotta have a business license, things like that. Because it's like you said, Williams, it builds into the narrative, and also what I say kind of gives you, street cred, right? That you know exactly what you're doing as far as the functions and the operations in your business. Your tax returns are going to play a part. Did y'all hear him? Did you hear him say profit and loss, income statement? Did you hear him say balance sheet? Right? Because those things are going to let, the lenders know, right? What are you doing with the cash in your business, right? The profit and loss is going to capture the performance of your business, but that balance sheet, baby, tells it all. What are you doing with that money that's in your business? Hello, co-minglers, right? Because I know that's probably one of the things that people, have been fussing at lenders about too. Like, I got money in the bank account. What do you mean? Blah, 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 blah. Cash and profit are not the same, right? Because even if you have, like, say, and I'll do it on the flip side, if you profited, like, you had net operating income or profit of $10,000 and you got $2,000 in the bank, you're like, where all my money at? You spent it, right? Owner's draw, right? So you have to make sure that you understand all those things. And just like what William said, you can't understand those concepts without a team, right? So, hey, we're going to keep on going. We're going to keep on going with this, right? So we talked about the education and the necessary documents before the lenders will even entertain, right, a conversation about applying for funding. But I want to talk also, Williams, about the coaching aspect. Can you give us a little bit more about how Building Bankable Businesses offers the coaching element?
Yeah, absolutely. So after the seminar, which is sort of a high level education and a reset of expectations, our typical participant in the seminar utilizes us for coaching, right? It's understanding what these documents even mean, right? Why an income statement is important, why a balance sheet is important, which bank is the best to go to for funding, to get your loan or your lending approved. Sometimes it's education around sales, but we focus a lot on the income statement, the balance sheet, what it means, why these things are important, so that you can understand how critical it is in order to take your business to the next level. And part of it is when we look at people's businesses, what we want to do is identify much larger customers in the segment that we're in.
Mm-hmm.
And so, for instance, if you're in real estate, there are some huge public real estate companies that are out here. And every 3 months, these huge public companies, they talk about the overall economy, the segment for their business, their performance for the last 3 months. And I like to have my coaching clients run their businesses much in the same way. What's the 3 month review? You made X. Why did you make X? Because you signed a big customer, because you grew, because the economy was just good. Not only do you need to know what the numbers mean, you need to understand why your business did what it did. You should be an expert in your business. And I work with my clients to make sure that they're experts in their business. Typically, we do 12 months engagements. If you need me after a year, I didn't do my job.
That's good. That's good. And I really appreciate how you set that up, because a lot of what you talk about in your coaching element about the why and getting people in your entrepreneurs really the opportunity to think about what they did, right? Because even like with promos and stuff like that, one of the things that we do, like we offer what I call a report card, right? Because we're all about education, but we do a little bit more basic because of the entrepreneurs and how they come to us. So say for example, we do like your revenue for month to month, but then we highlight, the top 3 revenue months. But we ask like, high five, what happened here? I mean, you guys were killing it right here. Did you do a promo? What was going on here? So again, just getting them to kind of think, because maybe it might be something that they had forgotten about, so they can kind of go back and run the play, right? Being able to take those goals, like you said, if you have an annual goal, and then break it up by quarter, and then break it up within the quarter, within those 3 months, within the quarter, and things like that. That's how granular you have to be in order to be able to track, and also when it's time for you to grow and scale your business and be ready for funding, um, to be able to talk about your business in that type of way lets the lenders know, and grantors in that matter, say that, hey, these folks are for real,
Yep.
right? This is not just a mom and pop business just out here just as another stream of income. They are really invested in what they're doing. And just to piggyback on what you said as well, just using GIP as an example, right? Even with our services, like we would do, we do bookkeeping, QuickBooks setups, and all those things like that. We realized too, partnering with a nonprofit at beginning of last year, we had to take a step back even from the QuickBooks setup, because in certain aspects it was overwhelming. So
Mm-hmm.
we said, you know what, we have to go back a notch and just lay the foundation. So that's how we ended up building out the business finance blueprint. So when we talk about entity, cash flow, like your money systems, how you bringing money into your system, how is money coming out of your system, right? Out of your business. Then we talk about the reporting and things like that. Insurance again is going to be important. We talk about that in your entity, because if you're building a business, it's all about protecting yourself, right? It's not just the LLC is cool, right? But especially if you got a family, you got to keep them, in your mind as well. So you have to make sure that you're protecting on all sides as you're growing, right? Revenue wise and team wise, right? I had to go back and increase my liability and workers' comp, right? Because I have contractors that are doing things for me that are traveling. So you have to really be thinking about all these things, and all of that information has to be reflected in what you're doing in your reporting and in your goal setting as well. Was it something else you wanted to say?
Well, yes, right. When I listen to you, if I'm a business owner who's trying to grow my business via sales, all the things that you're saying sound really intimidating, right? It's a lot and it's massive. And what do you find a Sonja Jones? If Sonja is at capacity, who's the next GIP Financial? And part of what we do in coaching is we help our clients, one, find the right advisors that work for their size of business, but most importantly, and this is near and dear to my heart, is coach our clients on how not to get scammed. Because there's thousands and thousands of people out here who claim to do good work, that when they take you on, when you decide to do business with them, then they mess up your financials. They put you in an even deeper hole. And because you don't know any better, right, you're doing business with them and you won't find out until you sit across from somebody like me and say, hey, this is all wrong. And so,
Mhm.
because I have experience in wealth management and insurance, because I have experience in banking, I know a lot of attorneys, I know a lot of accountants. I also serve as sort of a trusted source for referrals and verified relationships. And most of the professionals that I refer in my network, one, they come from trusted sources, but two, they come from business owners that have already received lending and financial services and grants. So I know what they do works, and I can help them grow their business by sending my clients to people who have proven track record of success in working with their clients.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That might be another podcast episode, Williams, because when I tell you, and that's kind of one of kind of like our core values as well, is well more so vision and core values is just being able to put ourselves in a position or at least evangelize the mission of what we do so entrepreneurs can see us as a proactive measure as far as reactive once the damage has already been done. Because I'll be completely honest, in some cases we can fix it, but in most situations damage has already been done. We can't,
Yeah.
and even from a best practice with bookkeeping, if you've had a prior bookkeeper and things like that, there's only so much that we can do, right, to clean up somebody else's mess that might require some written authorization and documentation and things like that. So yeah, that's dude,
Yeah.
that's a lot. Because one of the things that we actually did some YouTube videos on like the 4 financial roles that most entrepreneurs are going to experience in their journey, which is a bookkeeper, a tax preparer, a tax planner, and a CPA. Because Williams, I've been getting snubbed around here in these Memphis streets. They're like, "You not a CPA? You a scrub." you know, and then just being able to, not take it personally, but just being able to educate, entrepreneurs, on the difference between, one, the bookkeeper and the CPA, two, assuming that a bookkeeper is not just a person that also does taxes and vice versa.
Mm-hmm.
Think we have to break up some real fallow ground around here as far as debunking a lot of myths. Because, like you said, a lot of people just be like, I want to start a business. I heard so and so does it, and they don't even question them. They just invest in them, and then they don't know what's going on in the background. Also, just some people, some experts like to, leverage and utilize that jargon that folks don't understand. To kind of be like, well, they using all these big words. So I think they know what they're doing, and invest in them, and then poof, you know, you got a hot mess going on. So
Well,
go ahead.
well,
You want
Sonia,
to piggyback on that?
that's why education is the first fundamental component in what we do, and that's why the building bankable businesses seminars are important because we help educate the difference between a bookkeeper, somebody that's doing your taxes, a CPA, a CFO, right? All these roles are important, and how do they operate in the business ecosystem? For entrepreneurs, their first priority is to make money, but not just make money, make enough money to be able to hire people like GIP Financials to
Right.
hire help that's going to take them to the next level. But I coach them on how to hold those people accountable.
Exactly. Exactly. So, I got a couple more questions, but so say for example, if somebody's watching right now and they're doing something kind of on the side, that's a side hustle, but they haven't formally made it a business, what advice would you give them before they start making their side hustle a formality?
Well, Sonia, I appreciate that. And so I also co host a podcast called the Grind Set Podcast,
Okay.
where we highlight women and Black women entrepreneurs here in Memphis on their journey to entrepreneurship. And our target is typically women who've worked in corporate who wants to make that transition into entrepreneurship. And what I've learned 5 years in doing that podcast is that if it's a side business, one, make sure you're making money. That's the first thing. Two, track your income and expenses. And if you eventually want to grow it into a business where you're working in full time, that is fantastic. If you only want to keep it as a side business, that's great too. There's so many different ways to do entrepreneurship that you need to find the model that works best for you first. Part-time business is great if it's extra income that allow you to vacation. A solo
Mhm.
entrepreneur who only wants to make money so that they're not part of the corporate world is also noble. Somebody wants a family run business with no more than 4 or 5 employees, that's great. And the people who want to build huge businesses, that's also great. Right. So find the model that works for you. Uh, make enough money to hire good help, so you can leverage it and grow the way you want to grow. Right. So I think all forms of entrepreneurship and business are valid. And hosting Grind Set for 5 years taught me that.
Wonderful, wonderful. So as we close, we getting ready to close. Williams again, like this is probably we're gonna have to do another episode. I'm just gonna tell you right now. Because just the amount of information that you and I share, like you said, this is really kind of like, the pieces to the puzzle,
Yep.
right? To have the bookkeeping with the lenders, just that little piece, like boop, right? To make sure to get you to where you need to be. But we have had a chance to talk about Williams D. Brack, the entrepreneur. So I got one question for you, Williams, because I know you've gone from corporate, now you're an entrepreneur. How are you investing in yourself as an entrepreneur?
The first is education, right? I have to continue to educate myself on all things what's happening with business owners. So staying up to date with business and current events. Definitely taking care of my physical and mental health by working out and doing things of that nature, and reinvesting into my business via websites, marketing, growth, relationships, and continuing to build a brand in the business. So have to reinvest into the business if you're trying to grow it. And that means I'm spending a lot of money on marketing. So
Absolutely, absolutely. I have realized that too. we, that's been, especially as we, budget for 2024. That's definitely something that I'm having to invest in as well. But I definitely want to just again before we close out, just re-emphasize the importance of networking and partnerships, right? Because Williams and I, like you said, between social media and then also through the Black Business Association of Memphis, um, those are going to be those organizations where you're going to be able to share your expertise. Don't be afraid, to offer, a workshop or offer, some type of expert, level, service. What is like a consultation, a strategy session, things like that. That's how you're going to get your name out there. And I'll definitely say this, for GIP Financials, because we we keep our ear to the ground, and that's part of being an entrepreneur is being able to keep your ear to the ground, understanding the needs, and being what I call a gap filler, right? Williams mentioned that as far as seeing the gaps between even the conversations that he was having with prospective borrowers compared to what's going on in the more like upper echelon corporate environments. We see that as far as how people and entrepreneurs see bookkeeping, from startup perspective all the way to established businesses. You got to make sure that you're able to put yourself out there and don't be afraid to do it, because like one of my coaches, Sean Strickland, says to a third grader, fifth grader is a superstar, right? So start with what you know, and if that's going to be able to help people, and then they're not only helping them, but for them to actually see that what you said worked, then that's how the relationship that you start, able to nurture and
yeah.
develop those relationships. Go ahead, Williams.
And Sonya, the last thing I talk about, one, I want to give a special shout out to the Black Business Association and their
Yes.
next level leadership program for having the foresight and the wherewithal to fund building bankable businesses to help entrepreneurs in the Memphis ecosystem grow and take that next step to the next level. So I applaud them from that. And then the next thing, I touched on the education, I touched on the coaching, I touched on referring to financial advisors. And the last thing, the last problem I wanted to solve in building bankable businesses is that when I was a lender, if you came to me when I worked at First Horizon and I couldn't loan you money, that was it. You had to go down the street, have another conversation, tell your story again. And when I worked at Regions, same thing. You come to Regions, you have the conversation. We tell you no, you got to have the conversation again. So what I decided to do in building bankable businesses was allow my clients to have one conversation with me, and I have access to over 80 different lenders that I work with. I have a bank that I work with. So if you're bankable from a traditional bank perspective, we can get you money from a bank. We have nonprofit community development financial institutions that work with minorities and disadvantaged businesses, et cetera. I have access to those types of lenders as well if it makes sense for you to go with them. And then I have access to non-bank lenders that, you know, we're providing loans to people with as low as 520, 580 credit scores. If other things, the business is making money. And so I wanted to put my clients in position to have one conversation, but have access to many lenders. And that's another problem that I wanted to solve in the ecosystem of small business, because no one wants to repeat themselves constantly over and over and over and over again. And I wanted to help my clients be efficient.
I love that. I love that. I love that system because I've witnessed, entrepreneurs that'll come to me, and you can tell they've already been kind of defeated and deflated, right? And from an entrepreneur standpoint, you started this business and it's going well, and then they're like, "Why don't you explore these realms?" And then you get to that realm, and then it's just kind of like folks kind of bop you upside the head, pop, 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 and then it's like, "Well, I don't want to do this anymore." And I'm like, "No, don't do that. Let us help you build you back up." Right. And that's why a team is important.
Yeah.
So, Williams, thank you again for hanging with me and chopping it up with me on the From Chaos to Clarity podcast. We're going to have all the resources that Williams talked about, from Building Bankable Businesses to his podcast. Those links will be in the description as well. And thank you again, Williams. Y'all have an amazing, amazing day, and we'll catch you guys on the next episode.
Sonja,
Peace.
thanks again.
All right.